This is American Thought Leaders, and I'm Jan Jekielek. Today we sit down again with Tony Shaffer, who was a senior intelligence officer in the US Army and is now acting president of the London Center for Policy Research. He's also an advising producer for National Geographic and a member of the Trump 2020 Advisory Board. We know that the Attorney General is beginning to investigate the investigators. Perhaps there's even been some investigations of it already going on.
Right.
What are the priorities for Barr at this point, in your view?
Well, I think, and I think one of the unique things about the last interview is I'd like to believe is I'm providing what someone who has actually done this work has to deal with to understand to be doing it successfully. So within the framework of my understanding of intelligence collection operations, what I'd like to believe that that Mr. Barr is going to be doing is going to be focusing on three primary areas. First, the basic authorities. The basic issue which I've heard spun over the last 5 days is, oh, this was all quote unquote legitimate collection. Now, that's the key. That's the key to the whole thing, because the people who are on other networks spinning this are saying, oh, yeah, we denied they were spying to begin with, but now that we know they were spying, it was all done by the book. And I use that term very clearly because Susan Rice, the National Security Advisor to President Obama, actually used that term on 20 January of 2017 when she referred to this entire process. Okay. So that is the start point right there, the authorities, going from Susan Rice, going all the way down the chain to the field operatives. There should be a very, very clear paper chain, line of authorities, and most importantly, who within those chains handled the information on what dates. I can tell you for a fact, based on my own experience being a practitioner, that an operation like this, where U.S. citizens are involved, Susan Rice had to be somewhere involved in that process. EO 12333, Executive Order 12333, anybody can look at it, stipulates the requirements for certain authorities to be granted relating to non-disclosed participation. So the authorities are key. That's where I would start.
So you're saying that she would have had to have approved somewhere during the process?
No doubt. And as a matter of fact, I think her memo alludes to that fact, that there was an approval process that she was part of. Because in that 20 January memo, she talks about President Obama insisting that things were done by the book. So there's an acknowledgement that President Obama was somehow aware of the Russia investigation and what James Comey was doing as well. It's all there. She wrote it all in a memo. So I'm saying begin with what's in plain sight. Go with what the Obama administration has already admitted to and start from there. Second area that Barr should look at are the agencies involved and their authorities. One of the things which is notable in this is that the FBI, being a domestic law enforcement organization, was doing things overseas.
Right.
And the authorities for that are extraordinary. Now, I know for a fact that the FBI can do what they call extraterritorial operations. I've actually been undercover with the FBI doing these things. But again, it takes significant and high-level authority to do that. For the FBI to be engaged in two types of activities in particular, there's a very high gate: counterterrorism or counterintelligence. And these are the things which we know now to be true, the counterintelligence aspect of this. So there needs to be an examination of each agency's role within this mosaic. There's a large picture now we're aware of. We talked about that picture to begin with last interview.
Right.
Now we're trying to fill in some of those pieces. So the mosaic of who was involved, how their authorities were used, needs to be the second component of this relating to understanding the whole thing. The third area, I think, is something more that the American public will be interested in, which is, how could this happen to a U.S. citizen? Why were U.S. citizens not notified properly of the FBI's interest in this foreign counterintelligence activity? So we've gone from the top, from the authority, down to the who's involved, down to the individual. And the individual, all the individuals involved here, you have to examine what were their rights regarding what the perception was. Were they actually used because there was a preposition of a clue that said they were colluding, or were they completely clean, and were you trying to do lures? Were you trying to instigate some
kind of entrapment?
Some entrapment
Yeah.
to get them to act in interests that they would not normally have exhibited? This is a huge issue.
Right.